Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're regular here, you know by now I review many photographic, audio and video related products. Well, today we're looking at a camera that I recently purchased. In fact, I've had it about a month, maybe a bit less than that. And it's a great piece of kit. And what we're looking at is the Panasonic Lumix S5. And here it is. Really chuffed to bits with this camera. Now, this is at a similar price point to it's come down in price since its release, and it's at a similar price point to the, almost identical price point to the Sony A7C with its kit lens. That's got a 28-60 kit lens on that. Very compact body, full frame sensor, 24 megapixel sensor. Great piece of kit, articulating screen, etc. And it's also a very similar price point to the Canon EOS R. And this has got its, one of its kit lenses. This is the 24-105 kit lens on. Again, articulating screen, great video and photography features, and it's a really nice handling camera. So all three cameras at a very similar price point. But the Panasonic, I think, represents the best value for money out of these three and other models under the £2,000 mark, because this now does come under £2,000 with a kit lens, the 20-60 kit lens that I've got fitted to it. It comes in around about 1,900 and something, although I actually got a really good deal and I got it for less than that. I got this from Panasonic's own eBay shop, and I got it at a really good price. Now, this kit lens, before we go into the body of a camera, this kit lens is probably the best kit lens I've ever sampled, I've ever used. It certainly outperforms the Sony kit lens, and also it's wider. It goes as wide as 20mm. It's a full frame body, so it actually would be 20mm full frame and 60mm, wouldn't say telephoto, but at the longer end. So it's a good, all-round lens for using if you're going out and about and travelling. And that's what I like about it. It's a nice compact body, the S5. Great design, and I'm going to go through some of its features and design features that I really like about it. It's actually a wee bit smaller than the GH5, and I will do a video comparing this with the GH5. Everybody is doing the comparison videos between this and the GH5. I'm not going to go into great detail over that, but I will do a comparison one. And the reason why I'm not going to go into great detail, I don't think you can compare them. The GH5 is a top-end Micro Four Thirds camera. This is a mid-range, apparently they class it as mid-range, full-frame body. And I think it's completely ridiculous to compare this with a Micro Four Thirds body. It's better, which I will do, to compare it with the A7C, because it's almost exactly the same price point, the A7C, and the Canon EOS R, which is this one. Because these three cameras are a very similar price point. Now, the thing is, if you haven't already invested in a particular system, then I think the Panasonic is well worth looking at, very well worth looking at. Now, if you've already invested in the Nikon ecosystem, the Panasonic, not Panasonic, the Canon ecosystem, the Sony ecosystem, then you may well be better off looking at, the Sony A7 III or the A7C, which I've got here. Likewise with Canon, looking at the Canon EOS R, etc. Now, let's go through some of its immense features, and I honestly don't know where to start. I genuinely don't know where to start, because it's feature after feature, and for a camera at this price point, I think it's phenomenal. First of all, it's got a plethora of function buttons. So you've got your traditional PASM dial on the top, you've got your white balance, ISO and exposure compensation on the top. Easy to get to, very user friendly. You've got no end of function buttons on the back of a camera, which is great. Very similar to the GH5. And you've got one function button on the front of the top right here, kind of similar to what Olympus have and what Nikon have. And that's, again, very useful. And then on the top here, you've also got your two control dials. So you've got aperture on the front and shutter speed on the back, or vice versa, or however you want to configure those dials. And then on this one, you've got a dedicated mode dial. So that's single shooting, and then you've got 6K burst shooting, time lapse, and self timer settings on the top here. So very quick and easy to get to them settings. I really do like the placement of the AF on button. So if you're into back button focusing, gosh, I'm getting my tongue twisted tonight, aren't I? Gosh, if you're into back button focusing, very quick and easy to get to your AF on button, and also your focus point selector. So you click on that, then it'll come up with face detect, your multi points, 20 to 250 area point, single point, etc. And that's nice, quick and easy to get to. It's got a quick function button, ever so easy to get to. Just this button here takes you into your quick menu. You can set up how you want the quick menu, so you can set it up for what features that you would use most of all in the quick menu. That's fairly common because you can do that with Canon, you can do that with Sony cameras, but I do like that on here. And this function button set up for the level guide, so you see it comes on and off. Again, you can remap it to whatever you want to map it to. Same with all these, you can remap these ones, your white balance, your ISO, etc, etc. And also a dedicated record button on the top. Very, very useful. It's nice to be able to get. It's nice, easy to get to as well. And you know, nicely placed. I do like that. That is nicely placed. You can remap the shutter release to be the dedicated record button as well. I haven't done that, but you can do that. And on the top here, you've got 3 custom settings. Very, very useful. So you can set one up, and you can use it for photo or video. Downside with one of the Fuji system, I'm not sure with the Sony, but that will only preset it for photography. This one will do either or. So that's great. I think I've got one set up for extreme slow motion, one set up for anamorphic filming. I can't remember the other one. But it has got a dedicated S&Q dial right near the video dial, which is awesome. So if you are filming, you can change to S&Q mode really, really quickly. So if you're filming something and you want to quickly grab some slow motion footage, it's great. You just go straight into it. And it will record slow motion in HD right up to 180 frames a second. I've got it set to up to 120 because you still get audio, and it's full HD at 120 with autofocus, and it works great for me. Works really, really good. It's got a lovely viewfinder. I will put in the video what the dot. I think it's a 2.3 million dot viewfinder, but I'll confirm that in the video. And a 3-inch articulating screen on the back here, which is traditional, certainly for Panasonic. And it's great to have that because obviously if you're vlogging, and it's not a very heavy camera, I'll put that in the video description as well, what the weight of the camera is, but great for vlogging. I'm not into vlogging myself, but if you are, that's a great feature, and you can yeah, that work great. And with this 20 to 60 lens, that's why it's better than the 28 to 60 that's on the Sony, because this goes even wider to 20mm, and that is awesome for vlogging, because you really do need preferably a wider you know, a wider angle, and that works great. So you can vlog quite nicely with that, and it's a nice wide field of view, and it's got face detect, animal detect, eye detect, face and eye detect in video, and animal detect in video and in stills. So, you know, a very comprehensive feature guide, very, very comprehensive. And I haven't even gone into the features per se. And I'm going to go through what some of my favourite features are. And there's zillions of them, absolutely zillions of them. I think I'm going to have to do a lot more videos on this camera to cover all these features in any detail. So let's just run through them as quickly as I can. I don't want this video to run on forever and a day. It's got a plethora of video codecs. So you've got your full HD and you've got your 4K in up to 60p actually in 4K, but it does go into an APS-C crop if you're filming in 50p or 60p. That's fine because I don't really do 50 or 60p. I'm generally a 25p person purely because we're here in the UK, and that's full frame 25p. And it's lovely quality, it's beautiful quality, but it's got a whole range of codecs. 420 8-bit, which is what I use because you get unlimited recall time, which is phenomenal. As long as the SD cards run for and your battery runs for, it'll just keep on going. That's in 420 8-bit internally. It's got 422 10-bit internally. But you've got a 30-minute record limit on that. I suspect that's for overheating issues. I don't know, but I suspect that's what it is. And it's got many other codecs in between them codecs. As far as profiles, picture profiles, it's got loads of them. We've got, let's have a look what we've got here. We've got, if you look at what we've got there, you've got cine like these. You've got all your natural profile, monochrome profiles, landscape, portrait, flat. Flat's an interesting one because flat is very similar to a log profile, but it's just slightly easier to grade than a log profile. So if you don't want to muck around with grading log profile footage, then use the flat profile, because it still gives you, a good dynamic range, but not as wide as it would do in Vlog. It's got classic, natural, vivid, standard, and you can preset 3 different settings of your own. So it's got 709 like Vlog. Oh, it's called like 709. Cine like D2. See what I mean? Is just no end of them, no end of them. And for Panasonic to put all those in a camera at this price, again, I think is excellent. And Vlog is built into the system, so you don't have to pay 100 or 150 quid extra to have Vlog put in. It's built into the system, it's built into the camera, it's there from day one, and that's great. And you can record 10-bit Vlog or 8-bit if you wanted to. I would actually record 10-bit. I've done some samples, and I'll include in this video of Vlog. I'm not a grader, but I've found a way of actually grading Vlog quite nicely and quite easily. So I'm happy with that, and it does grade beautifully. It's really, really good. And if you look at these samples of me walking up and down the garden path in different parts of a garden, the autofocus, even in Vlog, is working absolutely beautiful. It's really, really good. Although to be fair, I know some people watching this might say I cheated because I used a smaller aperture, and that wasn't because I wanted to cheat. I couldn't find my variable ND filter to work with a wider aperture, so that has helped the autofocus clearly because it's got a smaller aperture, which means more will be in focus. But even so, it's still working great, and I will prove to people that it will still work at a wider aperture. I'll do some more filming to prove that, but and so Vlog is built into the system, and it records internally 10-bit Vlog on the SD card. So that's awesome. While we're on the subject of video, I have done another video, which I'll link up here, on recording to an Atomos Ninja 5 in 5.9K RAW via the HDMI port. Brilliant. Isn't that absolutely fantastic? I say that video will be linked up there somewhere. And again, no charge. There is no extra cost for that. Panasonic updated the firmware to be able to do that, and that's awesome. The only downside with it, again, I think they've done this not for cost cutting, but basically to save space. The camera's quite small. The actual HDMI port is a small one. It's a micro HDMI port. Would have been nice if they had fitted a mini HDMI port even, but it's a micro HDMI port. So when you're connecting an external monitor or an Atmos recorder, just make sure the cable is connected, you know, properly. It's got your headphone and mic ports on the side there as well. Microphone at the top and then the headphone one. And the nice thing is, nice-ish thing is, the mic port doesn't obscure the monitor. But the odd thing is, although the port itself doesn't obscure the monitor, so when you plug a mic in, the monitor is above the monitor, but the flap does. Because what they've done, they've used one flap for both the headphone and mic port. It would have been useful if that flap there had been two flaps. Because it's one flap, it does cover a corner of the monitor. So it's not a big deal, but it's something to be aware of. It's got your, obviously, hot shoe, stroke cold shoe for flash. But also, the shoe's brilliant for the XLR audio adapter. So I've got the XLR audio adapter. Again, there's a review. I'll put a link up here somewhere to it. It's called the DMW XLR1. That slots straight into there. No cables needed. So you can get amazing audio quality without having to plug a cable into the mic jack. And it records, you know, with Pro XLR microphones. So that is awesome. Remote socket on the side there, LANC remote port. And I've covered, it's got all these plethora of controls on the back here, and you've got your autofocus, manual focus and continuous focus dial here. Very, very quick and easy to get to. It is weather sealed, so you've got no problem with taking it out in the rain or snow or, you know, sand or whatever. Not that I'd want to take it out in sand. Certainly wouldn't want to change the lenses. And, you know, it's a great compact design. The battery it looks very similar to the battery that the GH5 uses, but in fact it isn't. It's a completely different battery. Oddly enough, because it's got two sets of contacts on it, you can use this battery in the GH5, so it's backward compatible to the GH5, but you can't use the GH5 or GH4 batteries in this camera. It is a completely different connection because it's got those extra pins on the top there. So that is a different connection that will slot into there. And that's great, quite a long life battery. I don't think it's as good as the GH4 battery or the GH5, but it's still, you know, it's still pretty good. Bearing in mind it is powering a full frame sensor and all the electronics for that. But it has got USB-C power delivery and power charging on the side there. So on this side, under the HDMI port, you've got a USB-C socket. So that can be used for powering the camera, and that's great. So if you're doing any long-term recording, because there is no record limit internally, or even if you're going to an Atmos recorder, you can power it via a USB block, so it'll just keep on going and going and going. But it'll also charge a battery as well if you're not using it. So that's another brilliant feature with this camera. The Sony A7C does the same as well, and most of the Sony cameras do. And I do love that for that reason. But on the side here, it's got two SD card slots. So you've got 1 and 2. Now, the bottom one, slot 2, is only a UHS 1 compatible, which is fine because for video, even 4K video, that's completely fine. You will have an issue though if you're shooting high-res RAW images and you're doing them burst shooting. The buffer will take it might slow down, so your photo rate will slow down a bit. But it's got two SD card slots on the side there. That's great, and it's got, as far as photography is concerned, it's got a high-res mode. So you can record one of two, either 40 megapixel image or 80 megapixel. What it does, it'll take a burst of, I think it's 8 photographs and moves them with a sensor 1 pixel at a time, and then it overlays them all internally, so you end up with an 80 megapixel file. But it's got to be a still life subject. Any movement in the subject and you'll get blur in it. So it's designed, I guess, for studio. If you're, photographing, it could be anything in the studio. A still life subject, it could be flowers, it could be food, it could be whatever, you'll get an amazing image. I've not played with that yet, but I am going to do some videos with regarding that. It's got many other photographic tricks up its sleeve. It's got 6K burst mode, which basically, I think it's 30 frames a second. I'm not sure what it is, but it's a 6K burst mode. I said it's got the high res mode, and it's got a 14 stop dynamic range as well with photography, and that's phenomenal. And I've played with some of the images on my computer, and you see, if we look at, say, this one here, if we look at that, now that one, it's not a great photo, but that's done a bit of editing on that. But that, oh, there we go. Why has it done that? Let's go into develop. So that's how it came out of the camera. So sky's completely blown out, and you can't see the berries on the tree, but brought tremendous amount of detail back into the sky and back into the berries. So and sharp or what? Even though it's a kit lens, very, very sharp lens. Look at that. Absolutely gorgeous. And it's sharp edges to edges as well. It is only a 3.5 to 5.6. I think it's 3.5 to 5.6 kit lens. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, 3.5 to 5.6. So 3.5 at the widest, 5.6 at the telephoto end. So it's variable aperture. But because it's a full frame sensor and this can work really well in low light, it's not a big issue. It'd be an issue with video because obviously if you're doing zooming in video, not that I think you should do, but for special effects you might want to, or for certain reasons. Maybe following a bride and groom down the aisle could be a classic example. You'll want to zoom as they get closer to you. The aperture will change. So a constant aperture lens is better, but they're bigger and they're a lot more expensive. This is a great kit lens. You're not going to have any issues with that as a kit lens. Well, what we're talking about is, look, still, now this is not with this lens. This was taken with another great lens, a Sigma 30mm contemporary lens, but it's an APS-C lens. So the camera will automatically go into APS-C mode when using this lens. I bought it specifically for video use, not for stills. But you can get some great stills, even though it's only using a smaller part of a sensor. And I'm thinking it's going to be around about 10 megapixel. So it's not, the pixel count is actually quite low, but the end result is really good. This is one of our cats in low light in the living room, and it's beautiful. Even when you zoom in, really good image. And again, there's just on auto white balance as well, autofocus. So the animal eye detect, it's picked up his eye beautifully there. The animal eye detect is working excellent on this camera. And again, little Molly, lovely sharpness. Little Sammy. We're a bit of a cat lover, as you can see. But little Sammy, lovely sharp images. So, even though it's a kit lens, it's not a kit quality, if that makes sense. You're going to get better quality than you would from traditional kit lenses. Again, if we look at some of these images, just the clarity and the colours, the colour depth is gorgeous, I can praise the whole system really well. Yeah, very happy with the whole system. So what I will do, these images, these sample images, I will put up on my Flickr page, and there will be a description a link in the description below to my Flickr page, so you can actually see these images better than what YouTube will. The compression on YouTube is so high that you're not going to see the real good clarity from these images as if, from when you will see it on my Flickr page. So that's what I'm going to do. So then you can actually look at those images in more detail without having to keep rewinding the video and looking at it on the video. But they are great. So that's why I say it's a great hybrid camera, because the stills are great and the video quality is great, and it's got lots of Panasonic tricks, you know, built into the camera. Like it's got a 4K live crop mode. They called it 4K live crop, and that enables you to. I will do a video on that as well. The GH5 has got it, and so has the G100 that I got. But it's a great little feature for doing pan shots in video. Again, product shots. It's got anamorphic mode. You know, these are features that are top-end features in a camera of this sort of price. No other manufacturer that I've seen has got anamorphic mode built in. So it's got an anamorphic D-squeeze. So you film it anamorphically, which is a 4.3. It's a squeezed image in a 4.3 aspect ratio, and then you can de-squeeze it. You can de-squeeze the view of it on the monitor in camera. It's great if you've got using anamorphic lenses. I do want to get an anamorphic lens. I've got one for the Fuji, but I haven't got one for the L mount yet. So you can buy an adapter to adapt other lenses to work with this system. So that's great. Again, I've not tried that yet. And the list goes on and on, what features this camera has. Another great feature is it's built-in IBIS 5-axis in-body image stabilization, 5-axis. So and that, it works great. So if you've done handheld photography and handheld, particularly for video, you'll get nice steady shots. A great feature. Again, the Sony A7C's got IBIS built in, but it's not as good as what it is in the Panasonic. Panasonic are renowned for tremendous IBIS. The Canon EOS R, although I love this EOS R, there is no in-body image stabilization. You're reliant on the stabilization in the lens if the lens has it. Now, if you're adapting old lenses, which is very common nowadays, certainly for the GH5, and it will be on this system as well. If you're adapting lenses, old lenses don't have lens stabilization, so you end up with nothing. At least with this, you've got the image stabilization in the body, so it's tremendous. It's also got a really nice grip, a lovely grip. I really don't like the grip on the A7C. That is, it's a very compact camera. I still love a camera, but a nice compact camera. But this one has got a really, really good grip, and I like that a great deal. So that's a really nice. I love going around with it. It's just so nice to use. One of the great features with the Panasonic S5 and the other Panasonic cameras, such as the GH5 and the G100, if you want to change one of the function buttons, so you want to remap the function buttons and you want to do it quickly off the cuff, with the other manufacturers you have to go through a whole rigmarole of going into the menu and finding where that is to be able to change that function. Not with a Panasonic one. Let's say, for example, I want to remap this button at the bottom here, hold that in, and within seconds it comes up with the what you can remap it to. So it comes up with it directly. So I can change that now to whatever I want just by going through this button here. So if I want to change it to being live view, let's say night mode. I don't know what that will do, but so I'm going to change that now to night mode. Push that. Now when I push this button, it's changed. It comes up with, do I want to switch that to night mode? Because that's what, there we go, and it's on night mode. So that's what I've told it to do. I didn't even know it had a night mode, but you know, that's the thing with this camera. It's got so many features built into it, and then you don't pay extra for them. And it's great, and I love it. So there we go. That wasn't as quick an overview as I was expecting it to be, but there we go. Because it's got so much to offer. There's going to be a lot more videos to do with this system. As I say, because it's the L mount, it's a new lens mount, and it's the alliance with Sigma and Leica. So there aren't going to be a great number of lenses available for this mount. That's going to be a bit of a downside. But if you're completely new to, you know, this kind of mirrorless system, it's well worth looking at the Panasonic. And even if you've got like the Sonys or Canons, it might be worth still looking at the Panasonic. It's at such a good price. So there will be a link to my Amazon affiliate page if you are interested in buying the S5, and I'll put a link in the description below to my Amazon affiliate page. I earn a few pennies from it, but it doesn't cost you anymore, and they've got a great returns policy. If you find it isn't for you, you can just return it. So there we go, that's the Panasonic Lumix S5 mirrorless camera. I haven't said many negative things about it, and I haven't discussed its autofocus. I deliberately haven't discussed its autofocus because I've found it pretty good. In fact, I found it very good. I have turned the autofocus down to sensitivity of -1, and then the speed to the lock position -3, I think that is. And I'm finding I'm getting excellent autofocus with it. So I deliberately didn't go into detail about the autofocus because I'm not having a big issue with it. And I can see that people probably do, well, obviously people do. Panasonic, rightly or wrongly, is still using their depth from defocus, which is basically contrast detect autofocus. And, you know, it can be a nightmare, and it certainly, you know, isn't as good as the Sonys. I have come across a few issues with the GH5, but I haven't found those issues with the S5, and that's completely honest and completely genuine. And I am actually filming on my two GH5s today. This entire video is being shot on the two GH5s, one for close-up, one for wide, and my Sony a6600 is just picking up a generic shot up here. So you will see how good these GH5s are now working in autofocus, because I'm on my own. I have to have them on autofocus, and that's what they're working in. Now, the autofocus even works absolutely fine with Vlog. Now, Vlog is an incredibly flat profile, so you would think the autofocus system would struggle because it's contrast based. It would struggle to find, you know, contrast in the image to be able to focus, but it seems to be working fine. So I'm not going to go into any detail on the autofocus because you know, it's working for me. At the moment, it's working for me, you know, and for stills, it's great anyway. It just snaps straight in, you know, there's no issues with that. So there we go. That's my thoughts on the Panasonic S5 hybrid full frame mirrorless camera. So I hope you found that useful. Please subscribe to my channel if you did find that useful, and you love my channel. More subscriptions are helping me grow the channel, so I so appreciate that. And I appreciate all the comments that people leave as well. I'm not the quickest at replying to comments, but I am trying to, you know, improve my method on doing that. So thanks very much for subscribing, and hit the like button if you find this video useful. That's really appreciated as well. So thanks very much indeed, and stay tuned for more videos relating to video and photography. Cheers for now. Bye.